welcome to your August 2025 monthly horoscope. We are getting very close to eclipse season, which is going to be interesting this time around with the rulers of the eclipses compared to the last time we had the eclipses. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail regarding the eclipses this month because I actually think that there's something very interesting or potentially interesting going on in August that is this very sort of subtle or contextual clue kind of, hey, this might be about this regarding the eclipses. Either way, I think August is a wonderful preparatory period with the Mercury retrograde before we enter eclipse season and how Mercury rules one of the eclipses in September. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that to kind of prep you guys into it, but just a couple updates you guys need to know about. I'm going to be posting podcast episodes a little less through August and maybe even a little bit into September. I want to make sure that I get eclipse content as much as I can in September out for you guys. But August, I will probably only post September monthly horoscopes just so you all have something to sort of prep yourselves for, sort of what to look out for going into September and those eclipses, which I'll cover in that monthly. But I am starting to organize my 2026 yearlies. So I'm going to have a couple ideas for the 2026 yearlies. The free 2026 yearlies, which I typically post, here on the podcast. But then I do more of a detailed, more transits, more sort of holistic 2026 year ahead that is up for purchase. So I'm starting to organize that. It's a lot of transits. It's a lot of information to sort of go through and make sure it's all there for you guys. Usually it takes me about 3 or 4 months to do. So August is a good starting point to kind of get ahead and start organizing that. So if you see me posting a little bit less, don't worry. I'm just prepping other significant content. So I will be back. Hang tight. And as always, I have to remind all of you that this is not conclusive. I'm not including every transit in August. Certainly not your chart, so please refer to your natal chart and how these transits might be interacting with those natal placements. If not, just listen, let it wash over you, and take what resonates and leave the rest. Hello, Aries risings. On August 6th, Mars enters your Libra 7th house of long-term partnerships, marriage, really personal and or professional partnerships. And what's interesting about this is that when Mars enters this area of partnership for you, it's actually going to start to form a grand trine with Pluto in your Aquarius 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals, and Uranus now in your 3rd house of communication and those people, places, and things within your immediate environment. What's great about grand trines in air signs like this one is it really can accelerate sort of information and sort of just maximize the flow. And for you, it's going to be between your communication, your social network, your goals, and your personal and or professional partnerships, just sort of gaining this natural flow. Maybe these areas start to feel a little bit more ease. But what's interesting about this grand trine is that it actually forms a kite formation with Saturn in your Aries 1st house. So when we have grand trines, they're great. They can cause a lot of flow. But with grand trines, we can sometimes take them for granted because when things are just sort of naturally flowing and happening in the background and there's ease to it, we can just, assume it's always there, or it's just, it's happening. But when there's a kite formation opposing one of the planets in this grand trine, this big triangle, it forms this kite formation. And so Saturn in your first house of self and the physical body is creating a focal point. It's sort of the leader in this grand trine. And so what's great about this is that whatever starts to flow, or maybe there's potential opportunities with social networking, goals, and communication, whether it's personal or professional, as well as partnerships, whether it's personal or professional. Saturn at that focal point, sort of leading this grand trine, tells me sort of like, see what happens, see what flows, and see how it can really help support you, your needs, and you feeling good in your body, you feeling like you can pursue the things that you want. And for some of you, it may quite literally be attending to your physical body, feeling good in your physical body. Or for some of you, it literally could be maybe stepping into more leadership. And with Saturn ruling your 10th house of career and public recognition, this could also signify maybe there's flow or information or things unfolding that could maybe provide opportunities for you to step into more leadership in your personal life or your professional life. So I think initially when you look, you're like, oh, Mars entering Libra, it's going to oppose Saturn, a Mars-Saturn opposition. But when you really look at the whole configuration, I think there is actually a lot of opportunity with this, where a lot of Aries risings might get the opportunity to see what is really starting to unfold and flow that can really help support your physical body, or maybe even professionally through stepping into like strengthening or stepping into some form of leadership. Now, August 11th, Mercury finally stations direct in your Leo 5th house of creativity, self-expression. Really, the 5th house is the place of joy, also children. So with Mercury stationing direct on August 11th, things could be moving forward. Really, anything that came up from maybe the very end of June into the first week of July, where the end of June into the beginning of July, roughly, it could have been those situations, those conversations, those contextual clues that now maybe you have more clarity, you have a different perspective, you've had more time to review and revise. Now, for some of you, it could have been anything to do with a creative project, anything with your self-expression, your children, and your day-to-day immediate environment. Or it could have, for some of you, have to do with your health, because Mercury does rule that 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So this is where maybe some of you are getting a little bit more clarity, or moving forward with a health situation, a work situation, creative projects, situations playing out with children, if that's applicable to you. And so what's interesting about this is that this Mercury retrograde could have been a preparatory period for the eclipse in Virgo that's going to take place towards the end of September 21st. So think about anything that you were reviewing and revising regarding work projects, health situations, your daily environment, communication fields, or, communication, whether it's personal or professional, and how that could be preparing you to step into a new chapter regarding your health, your work, communication, relationships with siblings or extended family. And for some of you, it could include children or creative projects if that's applicable to you. And so this is a nice sort of, we're moving things forward, but how can this potentially get amplified in September. So I feel like we're moving forward, Mercury's direct, but the story's not quite over yet. Additionally, on August 11th or the 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. Now, Jupiter is exalted here, which is a good thing. So Jupiter's pretty well resourced, sort of helping maybe focus on how you can expand, create more faith, abundance through the foundation of your life. Maybe some of you are obtaining resources or additional support or help from family members or people you live with. Now, excuse me, with a Venus joining Jupiter here on the 11th or 12th, Venus rules your 2nd house of earned income and self-worth, as well as your Libra 7th house of personal and or professional partnership. So this could bring a financial situation regarding a personal or professional partnership that might be integrating how you can feel more abundance or more support in your living situation, a property or real estate situation, that ultimately could maybe help your mental health or help you rest and recharge more. And for some of you, it might even help consequently support your growth and potential in life. So look for like financial themes, financial budgets, that could involve personal or professional partnerships that could be playing into how you want to expand or feel good about a home, family, renovation, relocation, property, real estate themes. Now, I can't guarantee this, but whatever Jupiter touches or whatever touches Jupiter, it tends to expand that. So with Venus ruling your 2nd house of earned income, as well as your personal and professional partnerships, Jupiter could help expand maybe a financial opportunity or expand your self-worth or even expand upon a personal or professional partnership that could be opportunistic for some of you. And lastly, on August 23rd, there will be a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. So August 23rd, we get a new moon in Virgo. And then the following month, on September 21st, we have another new moon in Virgo at 28 or 29 degrees. So, like I said, it's very interesting how Mercury rules over Virgo. And we're getting sort of a double new moon effect in August and then again in September, with one of them being an eclipse. So I'm looking at this closely, but with August 23rd, I think there could be this opportunity to really initiate a new chapter involving work, health, and routines after the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde. That the eclipse towards the end of September could really help shift, change, and accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about that. Hello, Taurus risings. So on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. Now, when Mars enters your Libra 6th house, it is actually going to start to form a grand air trine with Pluto in your Aquarius 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, and now Uranus in your Gemini 2nd house of earned income and self-worth. So there's actually the grand trine kind of it really changes things. It's not just a Mars and Libra. The grand trine is sort of this, well, if you think of a trine, it creates this flow, it creates this ease, this natural unfolding. Well, a grand trine, this big triangle in your chart, is sort of like a major flow between your career or what brings you fulfillment, your finances, your daily work, health, and routines. Now, Saturn in your Aries 12th house of the subconscious, sleep, solitude, subconscious thought patterns, the more hidden aspects of yourself and life, Saturn will be the focal point. And so we have this grand trine, but then Saturn in your Aries 12th house is actually creating a kite formation. So grand trines can sometimes create a lot of flow and ease and things just kind of naturally happening. But with Saturn at sort of this focal or apex point, it literally looks like a kite in the chart. It sort of helps anchor the grand trine. So it's sort of like Saturn here is the focal point. Saturn is the leader. And so whatever, even it doesn't have to be huge or significant, but what opportunities or sort of natural ease and flow is happening between career, things that bring you fulfillment, work or health, or financial themes, finances, that Saturn could quite literally be that invitation in your 12th house to be like, how can we become more mentally disciplined? How can we use whatever is flowing in those departments and sort of get really anchored and disciplined and, in utilizing whatever is flowing, but also anchoring into how that plays into your mental vision board. So even if it's really small or you think it's insignificant, things that are happening financially, work, health, things that bring you fulfillment, how can you take what is flowing, where there is more ease at this juncture, and how that could be a puzzle piece or playing into that mental vision board that you're sort of envisioning your life, where you want it to go. Now, when we get to August 11th, this is when Mercury stations direct in your Leo 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So with Mercury stationing direct in your 4th house, there could definitely be sort of the environment that this could be sort of moving things forward, could be relationships with family, home, property, real estate, but Mercury rules your Gemini 2nd house of earned income, as well as your Virgo 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children, if applicable, really the place of joy. So where maybe for some of you, this is like financial budgets are sort of more organized or moving forward or have some sense of clarity around, your mortgage or home or rent. And maybe some of you have sort of reviewed or revised your finances to renovate, redecorate, relocate, or spend more time with family, having more fun with family or your children, again, if applicable to you. But like I mentioned in the intro, I think it's important to remember what you reviewed and revised in terms of your finances, any creative endeavors, creative projects, self-expression, children, again, if applicable to you, that really could be setting the stage for the eclipse in September, specifically September 21st, where there will be a new moon ruled by this Mercury that just went direct in August 11th. Now, additionally, on August 11th, but for some, this might be on August 12th, depending on what time zone you're in, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house is communication, exchanging information, siblings, extended family. I like to think of the 3rd house as those people, places, and things within your everyday immediate environment. So Jupiter here is exalted, which is great, very well resourced. But with Venus joining this picture, I think this is just a dash more important for Taurus risings because Venus is your ruling planet. So whatever touches Jupiter, or whatever Jupiter touches, it tends to expand. Now, Venus rules you, your physical body, as well as your Libra 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So this could bring a little bit of some expansion, maybe more faith, more sort of that faithful, expansive, joyful, Jupiterian energy to you physically, how you want to show up in the world, or it could also sort of pour over into your daily work and health routines. But it's happening in the 3rd house, which is sort of your everyday immediate environment, your communication. Now, if you work in communication fields, this could really amplify that or bring some positivity or some benefic sort of consequences to that. But generally speaking, this could be a great time to focus on your physical body, focus on how you want to show up in the world, your overall health and vitality and work, and sort of integrating that into maybe an environment, an everyday environment that can really support those things, or vice versa. Now, once we get to August 23rd, there's going to be a new moon in your Virgo 5th house at 0 degrees. So again, we just had a Mercury retrograde, which rules this area of Virgo, where on August 23rd, we get a new moon at Virgo at 0 degrees. And then the following month, we get a new moon eclipse in Virgo at 28, 29 degrees. So we're getting these, it's interesting how Mercury rules over this area of Virgo. And after it goes direct, we're getting 2 consecutive new moons in the area that it rules. So this could be initiating a new chapter around your creativity, your self-expression, your creative projects, anything playing out with your children, or things that just bring you joy. And sort of initiating a new chapter around any of those themes after the opportunity to review and revise this area for some of you with the previous Mercury retrograde. That again, the eclipse towards the end of September could really help shift, change, and accelerate anything to do with your creativity, your self-expression, children, if applicable to you, and really any of those things that really light you up and bring you joy. So stay tuned for the September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about those eclipses. Hello, Gemini risings. So on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 5th house. Now, the 5th house is the place of joy, but this could include things like your creativity, your self-expression, romance, or children, if that's applicable to you. Now, what's interesting about Mars entering Libra, it's not just Mars entering Libra, it's actually starting to form a grand trine with Pluto in your Aquarius 9th house. I like to think of the 9th house as the growth and potential. So higher education, travel, spirituality, publishing, teaching, traveling, and Uranus in your Gemini 1st house of the self. So as you go into August, see if there's anything naturally unfolding with, ease, or just this natural flow between your needs, who you really want to become, your creativity, your self-expression, those things that bring you joy, as well as your ability to really transform and empower your growth and potential in life. Now, this grand trine will be in configuration with Saturn in your Aries 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals. So the configuration with Saturn actually forms what's called a kite formation. And Saturn is sort of the focal point, the leader of this grand trine. So it can sort of anchor or ground this natural flow that's happening. And for you, between literally you, your creativity, your self-expression, and those things that you consider to provide you growth and potential in your lives. And for some of you, if you have your MC in Aquarius, this could really include career as well. But I would say whatever's flowing between you, what brings you joy, your creativity, your self-expression, sort of where you really see your growth and potential long term, how can you take whatever is flowing or happening and unfolding at this time and sort of anchor it into your long-term goals? Anchor it into establishing and strengthening your social network. So this isn't just a grand trine. There is this opportunity happening in the background to say, hey, how do all of these things unfolding in August, how is that supporting and potentially setting you up to strengthen your social network, your dreams, your aspirations, and your long-term goals? Then on August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo third house of communication. I like to think of the third house as communication, but it's really like the people, places, and things within your everyday immediate environment. So like your phone, your car, your laptop, your siblings, your extended family, your neighbors, short distance travel, exchanging information. It's kind of a busy house. And so with Mercury stationing direct here, this could be moving anything forward that came up maybe around the very end of June into towards the beginning of July. That could involve anything to do with like a living situation, property, real estate, home, family, as well as you personally. So things could be moving forward with you, potentially a living situation, or things playing out with home, family themes. That sort of maybe getting organized in that third house. So like paperwork, phone calls, sort of getting acclimated in your everyday environment, figuring things out. But this one is interesting because the next two new moons, the one on August 23rd this month, or in August, and the one on September 21st, which is an eclipse, they're both ruled by Mercury. So I'm kind of suspicious that Mercury went retrograde and direct shortly before we get two consecutive new moons. And so I'm kind of thinking that this Mercury retrograde and now Mercury stationing direct on August 11th is sort of this preparatory period for you, sort of reviewing and revising home, family, property, real estate themes that really are supportive to you, who you want to be, where you want to go long term. Or it could just be sort of you and relationships with family or people you live with. Whatever sort of unfolded over the past month and even throughout August, I think could be those contextual clues as to this new chapter that some of you are going to initiate involving home, family, property, or real estate themes. Now, for some of you, it might just be a redecoration, relationships with family, or some of you, it might be a relocation, property, real estate, land, whatever it may be. Whatever sort of unfolded, I would sort of keep that in mind going into eclipse season, because that's where the eclipse could speed something up or shift things, and for some of us, even in very dramatic ways. So additionally, on August 11th, and for some of you on August 12th, depending on what time zone you're in, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer second house of earned income and self-worth. So Jupiter is exalted in your Cancer second house, which can be helpful with finances. And generally speaking, whatever touches Jupiter or whatever Jupiter touches, it tends to expand. And so with Venus in the picture, Venus rules your 12th house of, your subconscious thought patterns, your, your sleep, your solitude. The 12th house is like the more hidden parts of you or parts of your life. And Venus also rules your Libra 5th house of creativity, self-expression, those things that bring you joy, as well as children, if applicable to you. And so with these two sort of merging in your 2nd house of earned income and self-worth, there could be this expansion to a mental vision, expansion to a creative vision, or expansion to something unfolding with your children that could feel welcomed, it could feel more positive, it could be something more benefic. We are talking about the two benefics in astrology merging together in the area of money for you, Gemini rising. So there could be sort of creative ideas or things that maybe feel more joyful to you, could be ideas or initiating something that could be lucrative at some point. So I think some of you could come up with like lucrative ideas, lucrative creative projects. But all in all, I mean, these are the two benefics. So I think this could help you mentally as well. But all in all, I think this is, generally speaking, again, I don't have your natal chart. I'm not including all the other transits. Generally, I mean, this is good. And so I hope this blesses Gemini risings with more positive outcomes to finances and self-worth, but also maybe even creative ideas or mental visions that could be lucrative down the road. Now, August 23rd, that's when that new moon in Virgo that I was talking about with Mercury stationing direct. So August 23rd, we get the first new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And then next month, September 21st, we get a new moon in Virgo again, but that one's going to be at 28, 29 degrees. So it's like we get one right in the beginning and one right at the end of the sign. So again, this could be initiating a new chapter involving home, family, property, or real estate themes after the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde. That the eclipse towards the very end of September or second half of September could really help shift, change, accelerate, or even amplify. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about that. Hello, Cancer risings. So on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. But this isn't just a Mars in Libra situation, because when Mars enters your Libra 4th house, it is actually going to start applying to form a grand trine in air. So this is going to be a grand trine between home and family, property, real estate themes, as well as sort of mental subconscious thought patterns, the need for rest and recharge, really those more hidden aspects of yourself, and your Aquarius 8th house with Pluto, involving transformation, long-term financial management, investments, assets, debt, loans, and other people's resources, including a partner's resources. So we got a little bit of this accelerated flow. Grand trines, it's this big triangle in your chart, and it's in air. So there's a lot of intellectual information going on. And for you, it's involving sort of the foundation of your life and what's going on mentally. Also, what's going on, financially, resource-wise, any transformational work that's sort of unfolding throughout August and even into September. So What's interesting about this grand trine is that Saturn in your Aries 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment is actually forming a kite formation with this grand trine. And basically, it's sort of like the grand trine is this big triangle, and then Saturn at the top of the triangle forms what looks like a kite. And so Saturn is the focal point. It is the leader in this grand trine that's creating a lot of flow between your mental thought patterns, your living situation, relationships with family, and even some financial themes or transformational themes. So it looks like there could be a lot unfolding where some Cancer risings are going to be making big decisions August, September, especially with eclipse season. But some of you might be really thinking about sort of what living situation or relationships with family is really going to support, your mental health, your need for solitude. Also, just, maybe some of you are looking for a little bit more flow and peace in your life, while simultaneously looking at any transformational work or financial situation in order to change that or support that. Where Saturn at that focal point, anchoring in this grand trine, this natural flow between those themes, Saturn is sort of like, how is your living situation, relationships with family, what's going on mentally, or even financially, really flowing, and or what's sort of coming up that can truly strengthen and support your career, your business, your public recognition, or the things that bring you fulfillment. So I think a lot of you are going to be sort of like looking behind the scenes, maybe sort of turning inward for some of you, or looking at sort of long-term financial goals or resources that, in a way, like how is that all aligning to support and strengthen your longevity, your career, the things that bring you fulfillment. Now on August 11th, we have Mercury stationing direct in your Leo second house of earned income and self-worth. Now this could tie in additional financial themes for some Cancer risings, because Mercury stationing direct in your second house of earned income and self-worth is sort of this forward movement around a potential revisionary period regarding your finances, regarding your earned income or your value or self-worth. So with Mercury stationing direct here, things could definitely be moving forward that maybe came up the very end of June into the first week of July, where those contextual clues were kind of building as to what you're going to review and revise, and how certain situations maybe played into a self-worth scenario or a financial situation. Now this Mercury retrograde and now direct on August 11th could be a preparatory period for the new moon at the very end of this month in August, which I'll get to, and then another new moon in Virgo that will be an eclipse in September, where both of these new moons in Virgo, with one of them being an eclipse, they're both ruled by Mercury. So I find it very interesting that Mercury went retrograde, we reviewed and revised, now we're moving things forward, but in a way where we're kind of stepping into maybe a new chapter or a new opportunity or a new something that is going to be accelerated or amplified as we get deeper into September. Additionally, on August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your home sign, in your Cancer first house of self, the physical body, how you want to show up in the world. I think this is, generally speaking, again, I can't be conclusive, but this will be a nice welcomed energy for a lot of Cancer risings as you get into mid-August, because, Jupiter is now exalted in your Cancer first house of the physical body and the self, really, a well-resourced Jupiter. And with Venus joining the picture, it's sort of like whatever Jupiter touches or whatever touches Jupiter, Jupiter tends to expand that thing. So Venus rules your Taurus 11th house of your social network, your friends, your groups, your community, as well as your long-term goals, and your Libra 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So things could be coming together that feel maybe more positive or more benefic in maybe an abundant or an expansive way regarding, your social network, your social circle, your long-term goals, and maybe your ability to take independent action around expanding your social network, expanding upon those long-term goals, as well as any home, family, property, or real estate theme that could be playing out for some of you. Then as we get to August 23rd, as I mentioned before, this is the first of the 2 new moons in Virgo. So August 23rd, we have a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And this will be taking place in your Virgo 3rd house of communication, exchanging information, short distance travel, really those people, places, and things within your immediate environment, including siblings and extended family. So this new moon could really help initiate a new chapter around communication or communication fields, if that's something that is integrated with what you do professionally, as well as just like new chapter around everyday immediate environment things. So some of you could be really starting a new chapter where you're getting paperwork done and appointments and phone calls to really initiate something that could involve, a vision you want to bring to life, or something with communication fields or technology, again, if that's something that's applicable to you. But either way, this could also be a great time to initiate like a weekend away, short getaway, sort of trying something new within your neighborhood or immediate environment as well. So it doesn't have to be this like major significant thing. It could just be something that kind of gets you out of your day-to-day norm, that feels exciting, that sort of shifts your energy as we get into an eclipse new moon in September, which packs a little bit more punch. So, August 23rd, new moon, new chapter, new beginning around daily environment, relationships with maybe some family, some siblings, some extended family. Communication and communication fields could have like a new chapter, a new idea that you're sort of bringing to life. After the opportunity to maybe review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde that happened in a financial house. So some of you could have been sort of reviewing and revising your finances or your financial budget to step into this new chapter, this new beginning. That the eclipse towards the end of September could really amplify, shift, change, even accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about all that. Hello, Leo risings. So on August 6th, Mars is going to enter your Libra 3rd house of communication and what I like to call sort of those people, places, and things within your immediate environment. So generally speaking, this could kick up a little heat, a little energy, a little action in your everyday immediate environment. But what I really want to get to about this is that it's not just a Mars in Libra, because when Mars enters Libra, it's actually going to start to apply to a grand trine with Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. So it's actually going to form this grand trine, this big triangle in your chart between your 3rd house of communication, exchanging information, again, those people, places, and things within your immediate environment. And also your 11th house of your social network, your long-term goals. And lastly, with Pluto in that 7th house of partnership, and this can include personal and or professional partnership. So what's really beautiful about grand trines in air is that it's very intellectual. It's air, it flows, it's fast. So you could start noticing intellectual stimulation, sort of action in your everyday environment, your social network, in your personal, professional partnerships as well. Now, what's particularly interesting, adding another layer to this grand trine, is that when Mars ingresses into Libra and forms this grand trine in air, really kicking up some flow and some action, it's actually going to start to oppose Saturn in your Aries 9th house. I like to think of the 9th house as growth and potential. So teaching, publishing, higher education, spirituality, travel, really anything that you seek to increase your growth and potential. And for some of you, this could have career themes involved in this. But if you look at it, it looks like a typical opposition, but it's not. It's actually forming a kite formation. So it's a big triangle with that grand trine, and then that Saturn is that top point across that grand trine. So it literally looks like a kite, like someone drew a kite in your chart. And what I like about the kite formation is that there's focus. So grand trines can just create a lot of flow, just like a trine. You know, it dissolves obstacles, it creates flow, it sort of naturally unfolds things. But the Saturn at the focal point, that's the leader in this kite formation. That's going to anchor it. Saturn's going to help sort of lead and create focus to what is flowing between communication, social network, goals, and partnerships. Now, August 11th, Mercury finally stations direct in your Leo first house of the self, the physical body, really how you want to show up in the world. So this could be moving forward anything that came up maybe around the end of June into the first week of July, roughly, when that Mercury was retrograde. But this Mercury retrograde, in my opinion, could have been that preparatory period for the eclipse in Virgo that's coming on September 21st. Because Mercury rules over Virgo as well as Gemini, but I find it very interesting that Mercury went retrograde, gave us, for Leo risings, a period to sort of review and revise, you know, your goals, who you want to surround yourselves with. What is your value? What are your innate gifts and talents, as well as any budget or financial themes? So this Mercury retrograde, I think, was that revisionary sort of preparatory period, ultimately involving those themes, but how it really serves you, how you want to feel, how you want to show up in the world, and how that could potentially play into this new moon or new chapter eclipse in Virgo coming in September, specifically September 21st. Then on August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 12th house. Now, I think for a lot of Leo risings, this might be more mental, maybe dreams, subconscious thought patterns, maybe that inner vision board, that mental vision board that you have for yourselves. The good news is that Jupiter's exalted here, so very happy here, generally speaking. And Venus is the other benefic. And so around August 11th or 12th, I think Jupiter could be helping to expand Venus and what Venus rules in your chart. So Jupiter could be expanding upon your career, your business, your public recognition, or the things that bring you fulfillment, as well as sort of maybe your inner dialogue, your communication, things that you're sort of desiring within your immediate environment, as well as any sort of, maybe some of you want to expand your learning, expand upon your communication, exchanging information. That all sort of starts in this behind the scenes realm. So I would say for Leo risings, pay attention to what's going on mentally. What juicy ideas do you have? What visions do you have for the things that bring you fulfillment, or your career, or just your communication, or where you want to expand your learning, especially with Saturn in the area of the higher mind, or the higher learning, can really also help sort of anchor the immediate learning versus the long-term sort of higher education learning, if that resonates with you. Either way, these are the two benefics that are coming together. And so this could be helpful, in my opinion. Again, it's not conclusive, but I think this could be helpful to create more positive, expansive, even abundant sort of visions or thoughts that you have in your life, and sort of what ultimately is going to bring you fulfillment. Then on August 23rd, we have a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And this is going to land at 0 degrees in your second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, what's interesting, again, going back, we are recently coming off of a Mercury retrograde in August. And Mercury rules over Virgo. It went direct at this point on August 11th. And now we have a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And then next month, on September 21st, we have another new moon in this area at 29 degrees. So we get one new moon initiating something new in your finances, your self-worth, material possessions. And then in September, we get another new moon at the last degree of this area. So to me, I feel like I might be overthinking it, but something interesting is going on here for Leo risings around really figuring out your finances, your financial future, sort of initiating some sort of chapter that can really unfold over the next 6 months. So again, I think August for Leo risings can be a wonderful time to get really clear on that mental vision about your future. See, who's in your social network. Where is there even a little bit of flow towards your goals, your communication, exchanging information? What are those partnerships that can help create that flow? And how can you focus and anchor in on the long-term growth and potential with Saturn in that kite formation? And ultimately start thinking about eclipse season as we get into September next month, where we get a lot of new beginnings and new chapters with these new moons in your financial house, or really financial houses. And again, initiating a new chapter in your self-worth, your value, your finances, after the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde. That the eclipse towards the end of September could definitely help shift, change, and accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about that. Hello, Virgo risings. So on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, generally speaking, Mars entering the second house can definitely kick up, some spending. Maybe you're making more money, spending more money. Either way, it's kicking up a little bit more action, desire, or motivation around most likely financial themes. But what's interesting about Mars entering your Libra second house is that it's actually going to start to apply to a trine configuration with Uranus in your Gemini 10th house of career and public recognition, as well as Pluto in your Aquarius 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So this is literally creating a massive triangle in your chart. And it's a grand trine. They're all trines. And so trines dissolve obstacles. It creates a lot of flow. It creates a lot of natural ease and sort of just action. Now, this is in air signs. So in my opinion, that creates if you think of air, I mean, air just goes, it flows. Think of wind. So this can sort of stimulate a lot of intellectual action around what's going on with what brings you fulfillment, sort of career themes, financial themes, health, work. So I think this is going to be great for Virgo risings to really kick up a lot of flow and like almost literally like airflow. It's like breathing life into this grand trine between, career themes, financial themes, health themes. So whatever resonates with you, I would definitely pay attention to that particular area. Now, taking this grand trine to another level, it's actually this Mars is going to oppose Saturn. So I think a lot of the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think a lot of people who sort of look at the charts, they might see, oh no, a Mars opposite Saturn. But if you zoom out, you can see that this isn't just the two malefics opposing each other, that, a lot of people get a little scared or fearful around Mars-Saturn oppositions. There is positive aspects to that, but if you zoom out, you realize that Saturn is actually creating a kite formation in this grand trine. So you have this massive triangle creating a lot of flow between career, finances, health, routines. And then Saturn in your Aries 8th house of long-term finances, transformation, other people's resources. That is actually Saturn's leading this grand trine. It's creating a focal point. So a lot of times with grand trines, it creates flow and ease, but sometimes we can take them for granted. And so when I see, another planet opposing one of those three planets in this grand trine, that tells me that there's a leader. There's a focal point to use this flow or potential flow for good, actually utilizing it. So I think whatever's flowing or really coming up between career, public recognition, finances, health, work, routines, Saturn in that 8th house, I think, is going to help a lot of Virgo rising say, okay, opportunities may be coming up, conversations, things are flowing, things are coming up around these themes. What are we going to do about it long term? I think Saturn in the 8th house is going to say, be an opportunist, see what's sort of going on around you or coming up, but how can we think long term and set ourselves up for success long term with whatever is coming up in August? So definitely pay attention to that. I would say maybe first half of August. Then on August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo 12th house. This might help Virgo risings feel a little bit more clear mentally around your career, your public recognition, also sort of what is really going to support you and how you want to show up in the world, right? Mercury rules your first house of the physical body and the self. And it also rules that 10th house of career or public recognition, or if career is not a thing in your life, the things that bring you fulfillment. So you've had some time to review and revise these themes. And it was probably behind closed doors because it took place in the 12th house of the subconscious, the dreams, solitude. So now with Mercury stationing direct on August 11th, that could be sort of the mental push or that mental groundedness around where you want to go, involving sort of, what's fully going to support you, what's fully going to support how you want to show up in the world, as well as career or fulfillment themes. The other thing I want to mention is that I think, in my opinion, this Mercury retrograde could have been a preparatory period for the eclipse in Virgo coming on September 21st, so next month. And so we're sort of, I think August, we don't always get this, but in my opinion, I think August is this like prelude. It's this build up to this eclipse season. And if we pay close enough attention to what you were reviewing and revising around what's really going to support you, what brings you fulfillment, maybe career, public recognition goals. That could be playing a part in this new chapter, a really strong new chapter that we're moving into around those themes come September, because the eclipses are going to shake up, I think, what came up in August. Now, August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. Now, again, I don't have your chart, so this isn't conclusive, but I will say this, I think, is a beautiful time for Virgo risings to maybe take a little break and have a little fun. This is happening in your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So I think this will be a wonderful time to sort of just step into a more positive, benefic energy around the people that make you feel good, the people that support your growth and potential, the partnerships that feel best for you, whether they're professional or personal. So I think generally speaking, this can be a really great time, especially because it's happening in your 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals. But more specifically, whatever touches Jupiter, Jupiter tends to expand it. And so Jupiter is exalted in your Cancer 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals. So Jupiter is very happy in Cancer, is very well resourced, has a lot of tools here. And so in my opinion, whatever's touching Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter has a lot of resources to expand upon it. And Venus rules your Taurus 9th house of higher education, travel, spirituality, publishing, teaching, really anything that you feel provides you growth and potential in your lives, as well as your Libra 2nd house of earned income and self-worth. So some of you could be really expanding your financial goals, expanding your self-worth by aligning yourselves to the right social network, the people that really support your long-term goals, your growth, your potential, and your financial goals. This could also, because the 9th house is a travel house, this could also indicate, the desire for more travel, more knowledge, more spirituality to expand upon your goals, whether it's personal or social. Then on August 23rd, we have a new moon in your Virgo 1st house of the self, the physical body, how you want to show up in the world. And this new moon will be at 0 degrees. So August 23rd, you get a new moon in your 1st house of self at 0 degrees. And then on September 21st, you get another new moon at 29 degrees in your 1st house of self. So there's a lot of, and that one's an eclipse. So we're getting a lot of new moon Virgo activity after this Mercury retrograde, which Mercury rules your Virgo, rules over your 1st house of self. So whatever you reviewed and revised around what's really going to support you, your physical body, how you want to show up in the world, career, what brings you ultimate fulfillment, that could play into the beginning of initiating that new chapter around you. After the opportunity to review and revise those areas of career fulfillment with the previous Mercury retrograde, that the eclipse towards the end of September, specifically September 21st, could really help shift, initiate, change, and even accelerate because it is an eclipse. So definitely stay tuned for the September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail for you, Virgo rising. Hello, Libra risings. So on August 6th, Mars is going to enter your Libra 1st house. So my Libra risings, you might go into August feeling a little zhuzh, a little heat, a little desire and motivation around, what about me? What's going to support my physical body? How I'm going to feel good, how I want to show up in the world. But more specifically, when Mars enters your Libra 1st house of the self, it's going to form a grand trine with Uranus in your Gemini 9th house of growth and potential, as well as Pluto in your 5th house of joy. And this is in air. So this is creating a big triangle in your chart in air signs. So that's very intellectually stimulating. That creates, if you think of air, air flows very easily. Despite the obstacles, there's just a lot of flow with air grand trines. It's operating more in the intellectual realm, in my opinion, or the mental realm. But I think this could be a great time for Libra risings to sort of step into a little season of what is really going to support your physical body, how you want to show up in the world. And some of you might be seeking knowledge, reading, traveling. Maybe some of you could be traveling professionally or personally to, support your body or feel good or step into sort of your needs. Like maybe some of you need a break. And this is also involving your 5th house of joy. So I think August for Libra risings, again, generally speaking, this is not conclusive, but could be a wonderful time to be like, you know what knowledge, what growth and potential is really going to support my body, how I want to, show up in the world, but in a way with 5th house connections that feels joyful, that feels a lot more pleasurable to me. Now, taking this grand trine even deeper, there is something interesting with Saturn in your Aries 7th house of partnership, whether that's personal or professional. And so when we have a grand trine, it's great because grand trines create a lot of flow and, kind of dissolves the obstacles and just creates this happening typically. But sometimes we can take for granted grand trines. So when a planet is opposing one of the planets in the grand trine, it actually creates a kite formation. And so Saturn it will look like a kite in your chart, like someone drew a kite. And so Saturn is the focal point of this grand trine or kite formation. And Saturn's the leader. So that tells me there's less probability or opportunity to not take any of this for granted, really stepping into it, thinking long-term about it. And with Saturn in that 7th house, it could be through your partnerships. It could be through your closest partnerships, whether they're personal or professional, reflecting something back to you to maybe balance it or help support you. So I would say for Libra risings, how can, who's in your life that can reflect things back to you? Who can support, you taking care of your physical body, how you want to show up in the world, seeking the growth and potential, experiencing a little bit more joy, a little bit more pleasure in your life. So I would say definitely look to those close personal or professional partnerships that can really help you think long term or anchor in to more joy, more growth and potential, whether that's personal or professional, that I think is going to help support, your physical body and how you want to show up in the world. Now, August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So, generally speaking, maybe some of you were reviewing and revising who you surround yourselves with. What are your long-term goals? Or sort of what is going to, some of you could have been reviewing and revising your mental vision board, your subconscious thought patterns, and how that plays into the growth and potential you really seek in your lives. And so either way, I think this could be a really great opportunity to move forward knowing who you really want to surround yourselves with, how they help align you to your long-term goals, your dreams, your aspirations. And for some of you, maybe even provide some mental peace and growth and potential in your lives. So the people that really are going to lift you up and support you the most. But what I really want to talk about in terms of this Mercury retrograde is we are heading into eclipse season soon as we head into September, which is eclipse season. And this is one of the eclipses on September 21st in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we are getting a Mercury retrograde. We're getting an opportunity to review and revise these themes before the eclipse shakes it up, changes it, creates a new beginning around it. So this Mercury retrograde, I think, could definitely be moving things forward that were delayed or reviewed and revised maybe the end of June into the first week of July. But this could definitely be a preparatory period for the eclipse in Virgo on September 21st. Now, August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 10th house of career, public recognition, or if career is not a focal point, what brings you fulfillment. And we have the two benefics, one of them being exalted here. So this is, great in my opinion. And so whatever touches Jupiter, Jupiter tends to expand that. So yes, Jupiter could be helping expand your work, expand, your routines to maybe add more work or add more of the other side businesses for some of you. Again, if there's a potential, I see it. Doesn't mean it's necessarily resonates with you. But I think, Jupiter's helping some of you expand upon the work, the things that bring you fulfillment to maybe increase your finances, increase your health, your routines. But Jupiter is conjunct Venus. So Jupiter could also be helping expand upon Venus and what Venus rules in your chart. And Venus is your ruling planet. It rules your first house of self, the physical body, as well as your Taurus 8th house of transformation, long-term sort of financial management, other people's resources, including your partner's resources. So Jupiter could be maybe helping expand upon a partner's resources, expanding sort of transformational work that could really change your life. But ultimately, I think whatever it is, because Venus is your ruling planet, Jupiter is really helping to choose things that are ultimately going to support you and also support your long-term financial goals or any transformational work you are working on that is also consequently supporting your physical body and your appearance as well. Now, August 23rd, we have a new moon in your Virgo 12th house of the subconscious thought patterns, dreams, solitude. I like to think of the 12th house as that mental vision board that we haven't quite put out in the world yet. So this is the first, it's interesting, right? Because, we had that Mercury retrograde. Mercury went direct on August 11th. Mercury rules Virgo, where this new moon is happening at 0 degrees. So yes, a new beginning, a new opportunity around your mental thought patterns, what you envision for yourself, what, some solitude, some rest, some recharge for some of you. But we get a new moon at 0 degrees here on August 23rd. And then we get another new moon at the last degree in this area on September 21st. Or that one on September 21st will be an eclipse. So we get 2 new moons in Virgo in August and September. So this is a lot of new beginning, a lot of new energy, new chapter, new unfolding around, what you really envision for yourselves. What's going on subconsciously, whether it's good or it feels not so good. But either way, this can be a great opportunity to step into a new mental chapter where you feel sort of internally or mentally maybe more grounded in what you know to be true, your beliefs, your growth, your potential, and being able to step into this new chapter for some of you by releasing the limiting beliefs or those subconscious thought patterns that are preventing you from what you really envision for yourselves. So August 23rd, new moon at that 0 degrees in that Virgo 12th house. And really, again, initiating a new chapter around your subconscious thought patterns. Maybe some of you are carving out more time for solitude, rest, and recharge to gear yourselves up for something new. After the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde, that the eclipse towards the end of September, again, September 21st, I think could really help shift, change, and accelerate. So stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about all of that. Hello, Scorpio risings. On August 6th, Mars is going to enter your Libra 12th house. I like to think of the 12th house as definitely dreams, subconscious thought patterns, really our need to retreat, those, I like to call it the mental vision board that we don't necessarily advertise. So more of like your mental thought patterns that, are more hidden, the things about you that aren't so publicly advertised to the world. And Mars is going to kick up some heat, some desire, some motivation, some action around your mental thought patterns. Some of you might see this in your dreams. Some of you might be, up in the middle of the night thinking a little bit more, or just noticing your thoughts are a little bit more fired up. Now, dialing this in a little bit more specifically, when Mars enters your Libra 12th house, it's actually going to form a grand trine with Uranus in your Gemini 8th house of transformation, long-term finances, other people's resources, and also with Pluto in your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So this is creating a big triangle in your chart between what's going on mentally, what are you thinking about long-term finances, maybe a partner's resources, maybe transformational work, as well as maybe some things that are going on with home, people you live with, family, property, or real estate themes. So this is a grand trine in air signs. So this is sort of operating in the mental realm. This is more intellectually stimulating. If you think of air flows. It just, it happens. So with grand trines, there can be a lot of dissolution to obstacles, things sort of flowing. So there can be a lot of, there could be a lot of mental energy for you. Maybe some of you are tapping into like mental awareness, subconscious thought patterns, sort of, or mental ideas or visions for your life and how you want to maybe look at long-term finances, resources, a partner's resources, as well as sort of what's going on with home, people you live with, property or real estate themes, if those are pertinent to you. Now, dialing this grand trine in a little bit more specifically, this grand trine is actually going to form a kite formation with Saturn in your Aries 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. Now, we love a grand trine, creates a lot of flow, but sometimes we can take it for granted. So if there is a planet that is opposing or completely opposite one of the planets in that triangle trine, it creates a focal point. It sort of acts as the leader. And if you look at it, it literally looks like it creates this kite. Looks like someone drew a kite in your chart. And so Saturn is basically saying, okay, what are you thinking about mentally? What subconscious thought patterns are going on? What's coming up? Like, what are your life visions that could be coming up? And how are you looking at your finances, maybe a partner's resources, any transformational work for some of you, as well as what's going on at home? What's your home environment like? What can support you foundationally? Now, some of you, it could just be, switching up your current living situation to, make an office or redecorate or renovate, or work on those family relationships to feel more peace and solitude within your own home. And for some of you, it could be completely maximized, where you could be relocating, looking at property, real estate. Either way, Saturn is that leader, is that focal point. And it's basically saying, whatever's coming up around this time, how can you anchor in on it and think long term about how all or any of those themes is really going to support your work, your health, and your routines. So some of you might be looking at your finances, your resources, how much sleep, solitude, rest, your life vision, what needs to shift, what needs to change foundationally in your life in order for you to focus on what's going to set you up for success long term around a work situation and or health situation. Then when we get to August 11th, Mercury finally stations direct in your Leo 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So Mercury stationing direct, there could have been this revisionary period around money, resources, as well as goals, and also who you're surrounding yourselves with pertaining to some work situation, some career, public recognition. So some of you could have been reviewing and revising, your work, how fulfilling is it? Or maybe it could be a work project or, some sort of pivot or redirection, and how that can sort of influence your finances or a partner's resources, and how that can align to your long-term goals. Now, what's important about this Mercury retrograde, in my opinion, is that we have a new moon at the end of this month, and then we have another new moon in the same area in Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. So before we get into eclipse season that is involving a Mercury-ruled eclipse, we get a Mercury retrograde. And so Mercury stationing direct could definitely be moving things forward that maybe unfolded around the end of June into the beginning of July. But I think this is actually a preparatory period. So whatever you were reviewing and revising around your goals, who you surround yourselves with, maybe financial themes, a partner's resources, if applicable, I think this could be playing into sort of the new chapter or new beginning that you want to initiate around a goal, around a dream or aspiration, or sort of your social network that could be aligning you to your long-term goals. Then on August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. And so the two benefics are joining in your 9th house of growth and potential. And so anything to do with, publishing, teaching, higher learning, spirituality, or travel those are some themes that could come up. But whatever you're specifically focused on that feels like growth and potential for you is really on the table, in my opinion. And so Jupiter is exalted, very well resourced, trying to expand this area. And for some of you, it could be sort of supporting your career as well. But whatever touches Jupiter, Jupiter likes to expand. And so Jupiter is merging with Venus here. And Venus rules your Libra 12th house of those subconscious thought patterns, solitude, your inner vision, as well as your Taurus 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. So some of you could be really expanding your growth and potential because of an inner vision that you have for yourselves. Some of you could be expanding, those close personal partnerships, whether they're, personal or professional, that is helping to expand the area of growth and potential. So either way, I would, this could be a good time if it resonates, where maybe you've had a mental vision for yourself that you want to learn, or you want to take, direction towards. And, this could be the time where maybe you take that baby step, or maybe you take that big step to take that vision and seek the growth and potential you need to make it a tangible reality. And for some of you, it could be through the support of your partnerships as well. Now we're really ending the month, in my opinion, on August 23rd with a new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. So this new moon is right at the beginning of your Virgo 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. And again, excuse me, we had that Mercury retrograde and Mercury stationing direct August 11th, and Mercury rules Virgo. So we get the first of the two new moons in this area. Again, the first on August 23rd, right at 0 degrees, and the second one on September 21st at the last degree in Virgo. So you're sort of getting a double dose of initiation and a new chapter or a new opportunity around your social network, your long-term goals, your dreams, your aspirations that might happen in stages. So again, initiating a new chapter around your friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. After the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde, now direct, that the eclipse towards the end of September, specifically September 21st, could, I think, really shake up, shift, change, and accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into that. So I will see you all then. Hello, Sagittarius risings. Now on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So really your social network, your dreams, your goals. And so Mars is going to kick up a little bit of desire, motivation, a little bit of action to these areas, generally speaking. But if we zoom in a little bit more, if you're looking at your chart, you'll notice that when Mars enters your Libra 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals, it's actually going to start to form a grand trine with Pluto in your third house of communication and really those people, places, and things within your immediate everyday environment, as well as Uranus in your Gemini 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. So you notice this big triangle in your chart if you're looking. And this is in air signs. So this is a grand air trine where there's a lot of flow. There could be a lot of dissolving of obstacles around communication, technology, especially if you work in social media, technology fields, business partnerships, personal partnerships, as well as, dreams, long-term goals, and social network could really amp up, especially if you sort of work in those areas, or those areas tend to be integrated with the work that you do. I think a lot of Sagittarius risings can get just like a kick in flow and sort of dissolving any obstacles to more of the intellectual, mental realm, right? Because this is a grand trine in air. So a lot of you could get ideas and just be communicating and get the juices flowing between your partnerships, your social network, your goals, and, your communication, everyday environment. Now, if we zoom in a little bit more on this grand trine, it's actually going to form a kite formation. So it literally looks like someone drew a kite in your chart. And so if one planet opposes one of the planets in that triangle, in that grand trine, it creates this kite formation, which I personally like because it helps create a focal point. They're sort of a leader in this grand trine formation. So it can help us not take it for granted. Whatever's flowing, whatever's happening, that planet, which is Saturn in this case, in your Aries 5th house of creativity, self-expression, the things that bring you joy, really, this can anchor you in and create sort of a focal point for whatever is unfolding and coming up, what juices are flowing, what ideas, what action is sort of happening that some of you could really dial in and become focused on your creative projects, your creativity, your self-expression. Some of you, it could show up with children or children themes, if that's applicable to you. And so all in all, the good news with Sagittarius risings is that I think with Saturn in the 5th, it's sort of like whatever's flowing and unfolding, this could actually help anchor you and lead you into more joy, more creativity, more romance. And especially if you're an artist, this could really help sort of create structure to the ideas and connections that could be flowing around this time into actually making concrete results with those creative projects. Then on August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo 9th house of growth and potential. So publishing, teaching, higher knowledge, travel, spirituality, or really anything that you consider growth and potential. And again, for some of you, this could have career themes integrated within it. So Mercury stationing direct could, generally speaking, could be moving forward anything that came up maybe the very end of June into the first week of July. But Mercury rules your 10th house of career and public recognition, as well as your Gemini 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. So some of you might have had this revisionary period around what you want to do, what really brings you fulfillment. And, maybe it has to do with a certain business partnership or having to review and revise something within your personal partnerships in order to sort of align the growth and potential or the action that some of you want to move towards that thing that brings you fulfillment. And for some of you, it could have sort of career business themes integrated within it. But what I really want to bring up with the Mercury retrograde is that the next 2 new moons that are going to take place are in Mercury ruled areas. They're going to take place in Virgo. And one of them is going to be an eclipse in September. So I think that this Mercury retrograde was actually this preparatory period for what we really want to initiate in terms of a new beginning, a new opportunity, or a new chapter. And for you, it's around the work that you do, the things that bring you fulfillment or public recognition. Now, August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 8th house of transformation, really the long-term financial situation, resources, partners' resources, if applicable. So Jupiter is sort of expanding the potential to focus on long-term financial goals or transformational work, as well as partners' resources, if applicable. Now, Jupiter is exalted here, it's very well resourced. Now, that can sort of help Venus here, right? Jupiter and Venus are together, they're merged, and Jupiter could also help expand Venus ruled areas in your chart. So Jupiter in the 8th could also help expand your long-term goals, your social network, as well as your Taurus 6th house of daily work, health, and routine. So some of you might be looking into sort of expanding your finances through a resource or partners' resources, or just looking to kind of expand your finances some way that could sort of be helping you go after or investing in your long-term goal, investing in other forms of work. Or for some of you, it could be investing in your health, in, your vitality. Then on August 23rd, we have that first of the 2 new moons in Virgo at 0 degrees. So August 23rd, we get the new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees, and then September 21st, we get the next new moon at 29 degrees. So one right at the beginning of this house and one right at the end of this house. So for you, this is really both of these new moons, but I'm going to stick to August. So August 23rd, there's this new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees in your 10th house of career and public recognition, or the things that bring you fulfillment. Sort of giving you a little nudge to say, hey, what do you really want to initiate? What new chapter do you want to step into that could unfold over the next 6 months around a career project, a career goal, public recognition, or something that feels more fulfilling to you? Now you're going to get another new moon in this area on September 21st, and that one's going to be an eclipse new moon. So definitely for now, in August, the end of August, initiating this new chapter around career, public recognition, or the things that bring you fulfillment, after that opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde that's now direct this month, that the eclipse towards the end of September, again, September 21st, could definitely help shift, change, and accelerate in big ways. So stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about all that. Hello, Capricorn risings. On August 6th, Mars is going to enter your Libra 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So Mars can kick up a little action here. But more specifically, when we look a little deeper, when Mars enters your Libra 10th house of career and public recognition, it's actually going to form a grand trine in the chart. So it's going to form a grand trine with Pluto in your second house of earned income and self-worth, and with Uranus now in your sixth house of daily work, health, and routine. So grand trines can create, trines in general can just create a lot of flow, a lot of the dissolving of sort of obstacles or things in the way to allow something to flow or happen. A grand trine is like that amped up. And so there's a lot of potential flow and unfolding between career, finances, health, routines. So this is a grand trine in air, which in my opinion operates more on the mental, intellectual realm. So there could be a lot of thoughts, a lot of conversation, a lot of intellectual stimulation that could be creating the flow involving your career, your business, or what brings you fulfillment, as well as finances and health. Now, when we zoom in a little bit more on this grand trine, Saturn in your Aries 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate is actually the anchor to this grand trine. It's actually it's forming what's called a kite formation. So it literally looks like someone drew a kite in the chart. And what I like about kite formations is that the focal planet, Saturn in this case, in the area of home, family, property, and real estate for you, it sort of leads the overall flow. Because sometimes with grand trines on their own, it can just sort of keep coming, and sometimes we can, take it for granted sometimes, or just kind of let it happen. But the kite formation is the opportunity to really use it and utilize it. So whatever is sort of flowing, changing, unfolding between finances, work, or what brings you fulfillment, and sort of routines or health and work routines, whatever's unfolding as you go through August, Saturn in that 4th house is going to say, whatever opportunities, whatever new ideas, whatever, new ways of operating involving these themes, how can you think long-term about how it's going to support the foundation of your chart and thus your life? So whatever's going on financially, health and work routines, or what brings you fulfillment, that's sort of changing or flowing, or something new could be coming in, how can you anchor that into really supporting you foundationally, maybe your family, if that's applicable to you, or any property/real estate themes that could be coming up for some of you as well. Then on August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo 8th house, another financial house, but this one's more long-term. Finances, this could also involve your partner's resources. So maybe some of you were reviewing and revising, your work and health routines, your growth and potential, and sort of really in a way where you're looking at your finances, you're looking at your long-term finances, or any transformational work that could support your health and routines, or sort of reviewing and revising your growth and potential. Again, anything to do with continuing education, travel, some of you it's career themes, publishing, teaching, really anything you consider growth and potential in your personal lives, reviewing and revising that, but in a way where you're really looking at long-term finances and maybe how that's supporting that or vice versa. So now with Mercury stationing direct, it's sort of, generally speaking, could be moving forward anything that came up the very end of June or the first week of July, or those things that you were reviewing and revising end of June into July. But more importantly, I actually think that this Mercury retrograde is a preparatory period, or was a preparatory period, now that it's direct on August 11th, for eclipse season that's coming as we enter into September. So right around the corner. And the reason why I say that is because the new moon at the end of August, that I'll get to in a moment, is ruled by Mercury. And then we get another new moon in the area that's that same area that's ruled by Mercury as well. So both of the next new moons, the next two new moons, one August 23rd, the next on August 21st, which is actually an eclipse, are both happening in Virgo, that Mercury ruled area. And so I think August is a good time to kind of check in. What did you review and revise around your work and health routines, growth and potential, maybe travel plans, spirituality, continuing education, publishing, writing, or career themes for some, that could be setting the stage for the change and major shift around stepping into a new chapter around those themes. Now, on August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 7th house of long-term partnership. This could be personal partnership or professional partnership. Either way, Jupiter is exalted here, really sort of, in my opinion, generally speaking, helping to expand and create a little bit more help, a little bit more, benefic energy to the area of personal and professional partnerships. But Venus is involved here. And that's interesting because Venus rules your Libra 10th house of career and public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, as well as your Taurus 5th house of joy and creativity and children, if that's applicable to you. So this could be a wonderful time where maybe some of you start to feel a little bit more joyful, a little bit more abundant with the things that bring you joy, your creativity, your self-expression, and maybe even a little bit more expansive or benefic energy into the work that you do or the work that brings you fulfillment. Either way, Jupiter is conjunct or sort of merged with Venus, and Jupiter is helping to expand Venus-ruled areas in your chart, which are the career, the things that bring you fulfillment, and that 5th house of joy. So some of you could be sort of enjoying more of those personal and professional partnerships, or just feeling more expansive and abundant to other people. Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's people you sort of do things with creatively or have fun with, or people, your colleagues, business, sort of work related. So either way, I think this is good. Both benefics, one of them being exalted in the area of partnership, could be opportunistic for a lot of Capricorn risings around this time. And lastly, like I mentioned before, we get to August 23rd, where we have that new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees in your 9th house of growth and potential. So we get this first new moon at 0 degrees, and then next month on September 21st, we get the new moon eclipse, which amps it up a bit, at the last degree in this Virgo 9th house of growth and potential. So for you Capricorn risings, you sort of get this double dose of new beginnings, new opportunities that could really unfold around the growth and potential that you sort of want to take, maybe new avenues, expanding your knowledge, your spirituality, travel, publishing, teaching, that for some of you could also create change to supporting, I would say, because it squares your 6th house. Some of you, it might help initiate the action and change to create concrete results to the routines that are really going to support your work and your health. So not just a new beginning around, stepping into more growth and potential in your lives, but how is that growth and potential going to support your work and health routines so that you can have it all? So again, August 23rd, new moon here, initiating a new chapter in this area after the opportunity to really review and revise the growth and potential work and health routines, with this previous Mercury retrograde that's now direct. So that eclipse towards the end of September could really amplify, shift, change, and accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about all of that. Hello, Aquarius risings. So on August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 9th house of growth and potential. So again, publishing, teaching, traveling, continuing education, spirituality, those things that you feel are growth and potential to you. And for some of you, this could definitely have career themes integrated within it. Now, if we zoom in on this Mars entering your Libra 9th house, it's actually going to start to apply to form a grand trine with Pluto in your Aquarius 1st house of self and Uranus in your Gemini 5th house of joy and creative self-expression. So this is interesting because Mars might kick up some heat around this desire or motivation around more growth and potential that could somehow create even more natural unfolding or flow to who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world, and continuing to integrate, hopefully, more joy and creative self-expression in your life. Now, if we zoom in a little bit more on this grand trine, that's in air, very, intellectually stimulating. It sort of operates in the mental realm. We get Saturn in your Aries 3rd house of communication, exchanging information, really those people, places, and things within your immediate environment at the focal point. Saturn is sort of leading this grand trine by creating a kite formation. So it literally looks like someone drew a kite in the chart. But what I often notice with grand trines is that we can just, it feels good, things are flowing, things are happening, and we can sometimes take them for granted. But if we have a planet that's opposing one of those planets in that grand trine, that big triangle, it creates sort of a focal point. That planet acts as a leader to say, hey, what do you want to do with this? Let's do something with this. And so whatever's happening around the growth and potential you seek, whether that's travel, continuing education, publishing, teaching, whatever it may be, regarding sort of the transformation that's sort of initiated around you, as well as any innovation or change that you might start to feel around your creativity, your self-expression. Saturn at that focal point, leading this grand trine, could say whatever's unfolding and flowing around any of those themes, how can you think long term about what you want to communicate, how you want to exchange information? Now, some of you, this might be through social media. This could be through any technology with what you want to do. The 3rd house is communication, but again, it could be technology, it could be podcast, using technology for sort of these ideas that you want to put out into the world. It could be also, anything to do with siblings or extended family that could be involved in this as well. Or whatever's unfolding or flowing, some of you might be sort of exchanging that information with people that are local. And some of you might even be doing some sort of partaking in a community event, something going on in your neighborhood where you're able to take your creativity your self-expression or those growth and potential themes into maybe a more local public sphere. Then when we get to August 11th, Mercury stations direct in your Leo 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. So some of you, this could have brought up reviewing or revising something within a business or personal partnership involving finances, transformational work, or children, if that's applicable to you. But either way, this could have been a revisionary period within a personal or professional partnership that could be moving things forward now, as Mercury is now direct August 11th, over something maybe for some of you that played out the very end of June into the first maybe half of July, that now is moving forward, or maybe you have a different perspective or clarity on it. Again, that could be something financial, or it could be something to do with children if applicable to you, or your creative projects if that's applicable to you as well. Then when we get to August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So Jupiter could be trying to expand your routines, expand your health and vitality, or expand your work in different ways or into other areas. Jupiter is exalted here, so it's very well resourced, which is a good thing, because if Venus is conjunct Jupiter, Jupiter, in my opinion, is well resourced enough, it's exalted, to help expand Venus and what Venus rules in your chart. So whatever expansion that could be happening with, maybe some of you want to branch out your work into other areas, or you want to sort of expand your routines to incorporate more things like health, lifestyle, or again, work. Either way, this could be sort of consequently helping to expand your home, family, property, real estate themes, or growth and potential, continuing your education, publishing, teaching, travel, spirituality. That could also have career integrated within that for some of you. So I think this could be a wonderful time to create opportunities around the foundation of your life, how that's maybe supporting your health and expansion to work, but also maybe some additional components of like where you want to really grow and create potential in your life through the work and or health routines. Lastly, when we get to August 23rd, we have this new moon in your Virgo 8th house of transformation. This is also the area of sort of long-term finances. So investments, assets, debt, loans, also your partner's resources, if applicable. And so this new moon in Virgo is at 0 degrees. Now, what's very interesting is August 11th, remember we had Mercury stationing direct. And I think, in my opinion, August is this very interesting preparatory period for the eclipses that are about to take place in September. Because one of the eclipses on September 21st is Mercury ruled. It's in Virgo. But on August 23rd, we get the first new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And then on September 21st, we get that second new moon at the last degree in your Virgo 8th house, but that one's an eclipse. So we get this double new moon situation playing out after a Mercury retrograde, which rules the area that both of these new moons are happening. So this could initiate a new chapter, a new beginning around transformational work, if that is something that you are working on or doing. Or it could be a new financial chapter, a new beginning around financial management, additional resources, or a partner's resources that you could be looking at in some way, shape, or form. Either way, August 23rd, I think, could really be that first initiating of a new chapter around those themes after the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde that is now direct. So that eclipse towards the end of September could definitely help amplify, shift, change, and even accelerate the area of transformational work and or sort of long-term financial goals or resources. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into much more detail about that. Hello, Pisces risings. On August 6th, we have Mars entering your Libra 8th house of transformational work, also the area of sort of those long-term financial management situations. So investments, assets, debt, loans, other people's resources, including a partner's resources if applicable. Now, what's interesting about Mars entering Libra is that it's going to immediately start to form a grand trine with Pluto in your Aquarius 12th house of subconscious thought patterns, sort of those things going on within you behind the scenes that you don't necessarily share with the world. And also Uranus in your Gemini 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So, generally speaking, I think this has the opportunity to create a couple different situations. The first would be more financial or resources, again, including a potential partner's resources, and how, what's going on mentally with you. So maybe there's something going on mentally, sort of, subconscious thought patterns sort of coming up that could be affected by the financial situation or affecting the financial situation that somehow could be also playing into like a property or real estate situation for some of you. So I think one scenario could be more financial, property, real estate, living situation that could be somehow having an effect on your mental inner world. The other potential situation that I see with this grand trine is that it's more transformational work. So if transformational work is something that is more of a focus for you, I'd pay attention to this because it's the transformational work, it's the mental subconscious thought patterns, and maybe relationships with family, maybe something playing out with property or real estate that, might be bringing old things up or previous familial patterns that some of you might be sort of exploring or peeling back the layers on through the transformational work, through sort of what's going on mentally. And for some of you, it could be both. So this is a grand trine in air, so grand trines really sort of can create a lot of flow, a lot of movement. Trines in general can really dissolve those obstacles to allow things to happen. And so when we have a grand trine, which is really like 3 trines, it's a big triangle in the chart, it has a lot of potential to create sort of a closed system where there's a lot of flow between these areas. This is also in air signs, so it's even more potential for flow. But I do think because it's in air signs, it is operating more in the mental realm. So a lot more communication, intellectual stimulation, sort of mental energy that could be the source that's creating this unfolding or flow. Then on August 11th, we'll actually scratch that. We're going to return back to this grand trine because I just noticed that this grand trine is creating a kite formation. So again, this flow between these areas that I mentioned, and Saturn in your Aries 2nd house of earned income and self-worth will actually be the leader of this grand trine. So whenever we have a grand trine and then we have a planet opposing one of those planets in the triangle, in the trine, it sort of acts as a focal point or a leader in this grand trine formation. So with Saturn in the 2nd leading this grand trine here, it's sort of like whatever's unfolding between finances, resources, property, real estate, and also what's going on mentally or a mental vision that you're having. Saturn in the second house is saying, okay, whatever's unfolding or flowing here, how can you think long term about your finances? If it's more of the transformational stuff, the subconscious thought patterns, sort of healing maybe old wounds, old patterns from, childhood, or sort of a family relationship situation that's been playing out for some of you, this could show up and say, Saturn could be the leader here and say, okay, whatever's unfolding or whatever you're working on, how can we ultimately focus on creating longevity around your value and your self-worth? So that was one extra layer that I just wanted to add, because if you know astrology and you're looking at the chart, you might be like, oh my God, there's a Saturn-Mars opposition in my financial houses, but it's actually a kite formation that is this whole system that's creating flow and energy to unfold that could be having you really focus on that commitment and longevity around your finances and or your self-worth. Now we can get to August 11th, where Mercury finally stations direct in your Leo 6th house of daily work and health routines. So this, generally speaking, could be moving forward anything that came up the very end of June into the first week of July or second week of July, if we're getting specific on the degrees, but really moving things forward that maybe have been reviewed and revised for some time, maybe around a personal or professional partnership, home, family relationships, property or real estate themes that could have affected your work, could have affected your health, or could have taken time out of your normal routines that maybe now some of you are sort of getting back into some forward movement around establishing better work and or health routines. But what's interesting about this is that I actually think that the Mercury retrograde was or could be a preparatory period for the eclipses that are coming as we enter September. So right around the corner. And why I say that is because one of the eclipses in September, specifically the one in Virgo, on September 21st, is ruled by Mercury. And so I think this Mercury retrograde sort of was an opportunity to review and revise whatever came up in the past month or so for you. Could have been sort of the contextual clues as to the new chapter or new opportunity that could get initiated with the eclipse in September. Now on August 11th or 12th, depending on where you are in the world, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 5th house of joy. So this, I think, is going to be really great, a really great opportunity for Pisces risings to maybe put aside what's been going on and step into a little bit more play, a little bit more fun, a little bit more pleasure. We have the two benefics, one of them being exalted and very well resourced in the area of joy, creativity, self-expression, romance, and children, if applicable to you. And Jupiter is your ruling planet. It rules you. So Jupiter also rules your 10th house of career and public recognition. So some of you might be really feeling a little bit more like playful or joyful and expansive around, your work, the things that bring you fulfillment, maybe incorporating more creativity or artistry into the work that you do. Or that could be channeled into your appearance, your physical body, how you want to show up in the world. Either way, this is good. And Jupiter's joined up with Venus here. And Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So with Venus rules your 3rd house of communication, exchanging information, as well as your Libra 8th house of transformational work. And again, those long-term financial situations, resources, or a partner's resources. So Jupiter could be definitely expanding more of the joy, more like this could be a great time to enjoy yourselves. Do something that feels creative, self expressive, that could be sort of a fuel source for your career and public recognition, or your appearance, how you want to show up in the world, how you want to express yourself, and feeling abundant and expansive in your own physical body, right? More magnetic. And so with it also expanding Venus, it's like that could somehow have a transformational effect on you or your work. It could play into sort of how you want to align your financial goals or resources, as well as any sort of, how you want to feel in your immediate environment, your communication, exchanging information in your everyday immediate environment. So it could also this play, this joy, or for some of you, spending time with children, or whatever it may be that feels joyful and expansive and creative for you, that could involve you, like supporting you and your physical body and appearance, but also your career and or public recognition. It could consequently pour into or somehow support your transformational work and how you want to communicate with the world in your everyday immediate environment. Then we get to August 23rd, and this is the new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees in your 7th house of personal and professional partnership. So we actually get a double new moon effect. So August 23rd, we get the first new moon, new chapter, new beginning around personal and professional partnerships at 0 degrees. The next new moon on September 21st, like I mentioned, is the new moon eclipse at the last degree, 29 degrees, in your Virgo 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. So we get a double dose, a double new moon, which doesn't always happen. But again, both ruled by Mercury, and Mercury just finished a retrograde cycle. So this could really be the start of initiating a new chapter around personal and professional partnerships, or the partnerships you want to attract, after the opportunity to review and revise this area with the previous Mercury retrograde that is now direct, that the eclipse towards the end of September could amplify even more, shift, change, and accelerate. So definitely stay tuned for September monthly horoscopes, where I will go into a lot more detail about the eclipses.